This is Tales and Whispers, where every story is felt, not just heard.
So, what does it truly mean to celebrate love? Today, we're getting into an incredible story about a wedding and a choice that all started with one really powerful question.
No, seriously, just think about it. Imagine you have $27,000, money you worked so hard to save up, all for one single day. What would you do with it? Well, for one young couple, this wasn't just some hypothetical question. It was a very, very real dilemma.
Okay, so let's dive into this whole situation. For so many of us, planning a wedding feels less like a celebration and more like this high-pressure race to impress everyone, right? The pressure to create a day that's going to be the talk of the town is just immense.
I mean, you know the list. A spectacular venue, the perfect dress, photographers, entertainment. It's this endless checklist designed for a huge spectacle. And let's be honest, more often than not, that list completely wipes out a couple's hard-earned savings.
For the couple in our story, this was the magic number, $27,000. This single figure represented everything they had saved, and it was sitting right at the heart of the choice they were about to make. They saw two very clear paths ahead of them. On one side, you had the traditional wedding, the hall, the dress, the photos, all the showiness that's expected. And on the other side, a meaningful start, something that lasts, something that helps other people, and something that brings you true peace of mind. It was really a choice between a party and a purpose.
And this brings us to the moment that changed absolutely everything. This is where they decided to make a very different kind of promise, and not just to each other, but in a way to the world.
So picture this. Just days before their big, planned celebration, they're sitting together on their couch, just looking at that long list of expenses. And behind every single item that looks so beautiful in the photos, they felt this kind of inner emptiness. The numbers just didn't add up to true happiness for them.
It all came down to a simple question the wife asked her husband. She said, "Are we going to be happy for one day and then just forget? Or are we going to do something that actually lasts?" That was their turning point, and his response was just as powerful. What if instead of spending it on one night, we make it the reason someone else lives a night without pain?
And just like that, a brand new plan was born. First, they canceled all the extravagant stuff. Second, they decided on a small, simple gathering with only their closest relatives, no big show. And third, in a really bold move, they politely refused all cash gifts, making it crystal clear that their intention was a different kind of beginning, not some financial project.
So, what do they do with that money? Well, that's the real heart of this story. It became a true gift of a lifetime, just not for themselves.
They took the entire $27,000 and they divided it perfectly, equally among 3 different causes. 1/3 went to supporting children in need, another third to helping women facing really difficult circumstances, and the final third went to providing for elderly people who had no one to lean on. A perfect split, a commitment to spreading that blessing as widely as possible. But here's the part that really elevates their decision. They didn't just wire the money and call it a day. No, they made a point to go themselves, to see with their own eyes the people their gift was going to reach. They wanted to feel the impact directly.
And this was their new kind of celebration. Instead of toasts and dancing, they heard personal stories of struggle and resilience. They felt hands trembling with age and hardship. They saw a child's pure laugh, sparked by a simple act of kindness. In that moment, they said their wedding took on a totally different taste. Now, a personal decision this powerful? Well, it didn't stay private for long. It created this amazing ripple effect, an echo of joy that traveled far beyond anything they could have imagined. See, as content creators with a pretty big following, they chose to share their story. And their motivation was super clear. It wasn't for the views, it wasn't for the attention. It was for the message. To show that sometimes, decisions that seem strange to society can actually lead to a calmer, more meaningful life.
And the online response was just massive, overwhelming really. Some people were deeply moved, brought to tears. Others had this light bulb moment saying things like, "I never even thought a wedding could be like this." And a lot of people bravely admitted that they felt totally trapped by all that societal pressure to perform and to spend.
But maybe the sweetest surprise of all came from their own families. Instead of objecting, they offered their full support. They told the couple something so profound. Love isn't in the venue, it's in the legacy you leave behind. So, what's the ultimate lesson here?
What did the couple actually gain by giving everything away? Well, it all comes down to understanding the true value of celebration.
Let's just compare the outcomes, right? A big wedding often leaves you with exhaustion, debt, and a ton of stress. Their choice, on the other hand, left them with peace of mind, a deep sense of purpose, and what they called a merciful beginning to their marriage, one built not just on a promise to each other, but on a real act of compassion for others.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Not everything expensive has value, and not every tradition has to be followed blindly. The choices you make at the very beginning can define your whole path. By starting with mercy, they found that mercy just kept returning to them.
And that leaves us all with a final question to consider. Their story was about a wedding, but the principle is universal. So what is a tradition in your own life, big or small, that you might rethink for something a little more meaningful?